Hey everybody, I just wanted to send out my deepest apologies. Unfortunately, during the recording of the final section, our main topic, which ended up being a really great, fun conversation with my buddies Phoenix and Gamer, unfortunately, during the recording live process, I made a mistake with the audio, and it's lost to the ether. It's out in the void. Yeah, I had no really way of recovering it, and unfortunately, we kind of felt that I don't know. I thought it made the episode kind of crummy. Not entirely, but definitely that section. In my opinion, it's very unwatchable. So we decided to at least re-upload the majority of the episode and at least leave out the main topic. Once again, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Perhaps down the line, in some sort of ChazZ's goofs and gaffs video, I'll upload it somewhere just so for people who want to see it even with all of its flaws. But anyways. Apologies. It's my bad. Send all your blame, your hate towards me. I was changing a couple things up last second, just before we were going live, and yeah, I messed up my own audio. So why? Anyways, guys, I really hope you did enjoy that episode. I'm gonna re-upload it, and it's just gonna have everything but that. So yeah, hopefully we can catch you on the next ChazmaN podcast. We love you, we appreciate you, and we're continuing enjoying doing this, so we're going to keep on keeping on, alright? So, once again, sorry everybody, thank you so much, we'll see you again. Hey, what's going on, everybody? ChazmaN here, and once again, back with another episode of the ChazmaN podcast. This is episode number 39. As always on screen, there's some audio locations there for you if you'd like to check us out there. And then, of course, on the social media aspect, I should probably change that. We're now on Threads. Big news.
Wow.
Earth-shattering news. We're on threading, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, boy.
Thanks, Zuck. But yeah, we got quite an array of topics for you guys today. Here are my buddies metalgamer and Phoenix. What's up, guys? How have you been since... Shoot, how long has it been since we had a proper episode? Because the last one we did was all FTC and Microsoft oriented, so it's been about a month, probably.
Probably getting close to that, yeah. Yeah, because the last one was the FTC. Before that, I think we did just a Zelda solo video, didn't we?
No, I think we did a normal episode, but it's...
Did we?
Yeah, I think so.
It feels like a lifetime ago. So much has happened since then. So.
Yeah, well, we're gonna dive into that. Just hold your horses. But if you want to just kind of know what we're getting into this week, we have a handful of games. I mean, I guess it's expected over that long of a time for us to have a backlog of games we've been kind of playing. Got that. We're going to be talking about Final Fantasy 16 and its the Olympics kind of scores, that kind of game that we have kind of going on. We have a handful of speedrun topics, and we have a very interesting main topic for this week. Something I don't know, I thought would be kind of different, and it's definitely in my wheelhouse. Is that the word?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was gonna say wheelbarrow, and I was like, no, that doesn't sound right at all.
It's in your wheelbarrow.
It's in my
wheelbarrow. No, that's the right phrasing. Let's go with that.
But yeah. So again, you guys said you've been doing good. Everything. I don't think Gamer said anything. He was just like
tired.
Tired. Well, we are starting a little later tonight because Chaz couldn't do his editing quicker. Actually, it's my fault. So I told him to make changes last minute. So
yeah, that kind of added to my time just a tad.
Well, let's dive in then.
Yeah, I guess if I could, you guys mind if I go first with the first game? I'm going to be very quick with it. I wanted to talk about, I kind of threw some games at these guys just before the 4th of July, just to kind of gauge interest or what you guys would think would be fun to cover. And I ended up going with a game called Captain America, what was it called? I almost said Future Soldier. It's Super Soldier. I was wrong. I guess just a little bit of background on this game. It is a 2011 game. I had some information. Anyways, it's made by, I think it was High Voltage, and then there was another developer that kind of helped out with the port essentially for the Wii, because I guess previous developer did other games, but essentially it's it was pretty fun. I mean, have you guys heard anything about this game? I'm assuming probably not. Phoenix probably has a copy.
Yeah, I have a copy, I think, for the 360. Haven't played it. I heard relatively favorable things about the 360 version. I know for a while that game was kind of creeping up in price too. It was getting a little hard to find. I think some people were looking at it as like a hidden gem. So I'm not sure. I mean, Wii versions are typically a little watered down comparative to some of the other consoles of that generation. But I don't know. I heard good things overall. So you're saying that the Wii version held up for the most part?
Well, I'm kind of showing you guys a little bit of my gameplay. Looks
Man, he's a chunky,
He's-
a very thick cap.
he's a.
Yeah, he is.
If
He's
you don't know,
big.
actually, Chris Evans actually voiced him in this game. So it is all Chris Evans voiced. They have that
It's not
like
just clips from the movie. It's straight
No.
up like they got to do VO.
yeah, on the back of the box it literally says voiced by Captain America himself or whatever. So
That's back when they could probably still afford it because the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe
Oh.
barely took off at that point.
this was like after the first movie where it was like before the MCU was totally fully developed.
What was this? Was it the fourth movie in the MCU? Because you had Iron Man was technically the first. What came after that? Was it Captain America after that? Well, they did that.
Was that
Edward Norton?
Edward
Hulk.
Norton Hulk movie? I was going to say that technically was one of the first two, probably.
And then it was, I know Iron Man 2 was in there somewhere, and then Thor and Cap. So it was like the fourth or fifth one, so very early on.
Very early on, yeah. I think this is one of your favorite Marvel movies, isn't it? Technically, the first one.
Yeah, I know.
Has
Most
it
people
not
don't
aged
agree.
well? Or I thought you were going to say it has.
I think it has. I like it. I mean, I can understand when people would criticize it. I like the kind of period piece kind of setting it's in, the 1950s backdrop. Kind of the cinematography around that kind of glows up the whole 1950s with a cool kind of aesthetic. And I don't know, I liked the way they told that story. I like the way at the end it kind of transitions over into modern times. I liked what's his face as Red Skull.
Hugo
help me
Weaving?
out.
I think it was
The elf.
Hugo Weaving.
Was it Hugo Weaving? Yeah. I
Matrix-
was actually really
Matrix guy.
disappointed when they switched him out for what was it, Endgame or Infinity War? One of them.
That's
But
right, they did
either
do
way.
that.
Yeah.
I guess I should say, if you want I guess I can kind of, well, I'll show you, but, so this game came out 2011. To give you kind of a brief summation of, like, the gameplay itself, what other superhero video game series around this time was huge? Around 2011.
Superhero video games. I'm trying to think.
Not
The only thing I can
necessarily
think of-
Marvel.
oh, well, the only thing I can think of is Ultimate Alliance, not Marvel.
Well,
Like
one of my other
DC?
favorite heroes, yeah. The Arkham games.
Was Arkham out around this time? I guess it was.
Because the first Arkham game I think was like 07 or 08, maybe 09. So this is around the time I think Arkham City came out, or maybe Arkham
Really?
might have been on its way. So this game very much utilizes that like Arkham combat, where it's you have like one or two buttons that do attacks, but it's very like
reactionary kind of thing where you wait.
where
Yeah.
you wait for them to attack.
So
and stuff.
many action games around that time stole that. I mean, even like the Spider-Man games, the modern ones by Insomniac, they have that essentially where your Spidey sense goes off and you can react to the combat. So
It's the same thing here. Like something happens above their heads when they're getting ready to attack, and you just hit the counter button. I don't know. I just thought that was a fun little tidbit that it's like this game came out at around the time Arkham was huge, and it's like it very much utilizes that. The game does have some other cool features. I'm trying to show it, but they do a lot of stuff actually with Cap's shield. I don't know if you can see it, but there's actually almost like an aiming mechanic with his shield, where they actually utilize it not only with combat but also with solving puzzles. So like if you press like right, I think it was like, oh man, the Wii buttons are weird, but on the right, almost like where the right trigger is, there's almost a thing that it slows down time, and you can like line up things to hit an order or something to do certain puzzles. You can also do it with enemies. Like here, you can see that. I don't know if you can.
yeah.
But yeah, and that's all Wii motion controlled, so it's like really, you can tell I'm struggling with it. Yeah, but it's kind of
Like
cool.
watching you play Skyward Sword all over again.
It's kind of cool. I mean, I would say for the time, that's like there's some, I don't want to say innovative ideas, but there's some interesting things that they were attempting to do with this game. I I would just say overall, like the story was kind of bland. I mean, I didn't finish the game. I played maybe 2.5, 3 hours, I think, and it was
Mhm.
fun. I had no like. I I think this is a game that I could see would have been like if I would have played it at the time, I would have said that's a fun game. It was good. I don't know. That's about
Okay.
all I got to say.
I'd be curious to know if the 360 slash PS3 version
Yes.
is better. Because like sometimes the Wii games, are just like watered down ports where it's mostly like a graphical downgrade, and then some games are like completely different. Like they'll have completely different structures, gameplay, levels, all of it. So I'm curious if that's a similar case here, or if it's just a graphical
That
downgrade.
probably
So
should have been
I think
something I looked up, but I don't know. All I played
yeah,
was the Wii version. I don't
either
know
way.
if how it was totally different developer though that did the Wii port, so I'm assuming there's probably a a fairly good chance that it's different.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah, overall, I just throwing it out there. I would definitely recommend this game if you like superheroes. If you like, if you like the Arkham games and you really enjoy some of that combat, it was fun and I can't think of the word. It was unique. I would say in terms of like the aiming with the motion and the shield and everything. It was
Did it
interesting.
make you love America more while you were playing it for the Fourth of
Oh,
July weekend?
Or
nothing killing Nazis.
There
Nothing
you go.
nothing more Fourth of July.
Nothing more red, white, and blue than that. So.
Okay, so moving on. So I guess Phoenix, did you want to talk some Diablo?
Sure.
Um,
Um, I know, probably since we last talked about it, you guys haven't really touched it. I know Metal's gotten sucked into Zelda, trying his best to wrap that up.
I'm into
And
another
then,
game right now, so
yeah, you just fell off completely, which I'm a little disappointed with. You just moved right along.
I would have kept playing, but I was getting bored playing by myself, so I was just like, I'll play if you. That's why I kept throwing out if you guys were playing, I'd hop in. But
No, fair enough. I've been
I'm
playing mostly with my wife, because this is kind of like, this is her thing. Like, I've always enjoyed Diablo, but I've always kind of piggybacked off of her enthusiasm for the game.
so
Um,
real not to
has it changed since last time?
or good. Yeah.
yes and no. So at its core, it's Diablo, and if you've ever enjoyed a Diablo game, you're gonna enjoy this. The gameplay is the same. I mean, there's small changes here and there, but the whole concept of running around smashing demons and raiding dungeons, it plays the same. A lot of the changes they've made, like you have the graphical changes, and then you've got like some of the overarching like world changes. I don't know if I prefer over three. I'm hesitant to say they're bad. I mean, there's enough people playing this game. Of course, it's not bad. There's plenty of people who are liking these changes, or maybe those who haven't been big on three hopping into it. I was talking to somebody who I came across a couple of weeks ago who had never played any of the old Diablos. This is the
Ooh,
first one, and
very
they're
I
loving
love
it.
different.
it. Of
Hmm.
course.
Well, it's not very different because the core of the game is the same. I mean, really, I'm trying
It
to
is.
think of like any core fundamental gameplay differences
Well, in the
between any of
originals,
them.
oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not different in terms of how the games operate, but I feel like there was a difficulty much like in the original games. If you got swarmed by more than like 4 or 5 enemies, you had better have been at a good level. Whereas in this
Yeah, but
game,
what I'm getting at is like context of like how the game plays,
yeah,
like the
I get
gameplay
what you're
style
saying.
and
Yeah,
whatnot.
I see.
So point being is people I talk to are loving this. And I think that's partially, I mean, not because it's not a good game on its own, but they don't have anything to compare it to. So if you look at this game at just face value, what it's offering you without any other comparison, you're getting a solid package, right? Everything about it is quality. The art style is nice. It looks good. It's not my favorite art style for Diablo, to be honest, but I'm probably the minority there.
Well, to be
And if you're
fair, is
playing with
there?
people, huh?
No, I was just say to be fair, is there any Diablo-like game that is something that could rival it? I mean, I know there's what Baldur's Gate. There's is
Um,
Pillars of Eternity,
Pillars
Pillars
of
is
Eternity.
similar.
but Pillars
What do you
doesn't
say?
have the name
Yeah, I said
of.
Right.
Pillars and Baldur's Gate.
But those aren't like the name that Diablo. Like Diablo's like in terms of
Yeah, it's
just.
the more mainstream option.
Mhm.
But anyway, where I'm going with
Oh,
this
sorry,
is
God, yeah.
it's a good game. I don't think there's any issue or argument about that. I think you guys would probably agree with that from your little bit of playtime with it.
No, it's fun.
I really enjoy three more. So there's a few things. For one, I like the art style of three better, and I know people are not going to agree with that because people were clamoring for it to go back to the darker Diablo 2 aesthetic,
That
which they
seems
very
to be
much
the
did.
total opposite sentiment from what I hear. A lot of people I hear prefer this versus.
And that's fair. I said this is pretty subjective. I think part of it for me is not that I don't like the new art style. It's a lot harder to read, like to see what's happening because everything's a lot more grays and browns, and it's muddier and more gothic and darker. I think it's harder to read the action in the same way. And maybe that's just the way I'm playing. I'm playing on console, so I'm further away from the TV, so maybe there's that. But I thought Diablo 3 read a lot easier. It was a lot brighter, a lot more colorful. I could kind of see like enemy telegraphs a little better because of the over elaborate like animations and things like that. So I think that's probably partially why I enjoyed 3. It also gave it a lot more. I'm hesitant to say character because you could also say that this darker aesthetic is a character to a certain extent, but I liked the kind of elaborate over the top nature that the cartoony aesthetic gave to a certain extent. It also I liked the bit of dark humor that Diablo 3 had. This game is almost depressingly not funny. I mean, every once in a while it tries, and maybe that's not what they're trying to go for, but it's not that the Diablo 3 was, a laugh riot by any means, but you had some fun kind of comical moments. You had like Covetous Shin, who I thought was fun to chat with, and some of the other side characters you came across. This game's just very much a downer. I mean, if you're thinking about it from a story perspective, or even like talking with other side characters. What else? What else?
You ran into treasure goblins yet and feel thankless about it?
Yeah.
They're thankless in their thankless dungeons.
Yeah, I'll tell you, most of the loot, and I don't
Hate
want to
the
say I'm
looting.
early game. I am like midway through Act 5, and I'm like level 48, so I played a good amount. But yeah, the loot hasn't excited me yet. Even like the skills for my character, I'm playing. I know this is not the probably most exciting character, but I always do it. I'm playing a sorcerer, kind of the thunder element version. I don't know, it's fine. Maybe if I played a more interesting class like a necro or a druid, maybe I'd be feeling different, but. I don't know. Nothing's feeling exciting about it. The loot game's not really jumping out at me just yet. It's fine. I'm chasing the next big number, but nothing about the abilities are really, setting anything off for me. The
Um,
Have you
open
tr-
world, I'm not sure if I'm a huge
uh,
fan of yet. I don't know. How do you guys like the open world aspect of it? Did you prefer that over kind of the more straightforward linear structure, or?
Not really. I mean, it's okay. I mean, for what it is, it's fine. It's
it's not
just
right. They
I think
shifted
3
away
is better.
from the computer generated
So
levels, right?
dungeons, to my knowledge, are procedural. Like if you
Yeah.
go to like an
Mm,
instance dungeon or a cavern or something, but the world itself, everybody has the same world map.
mm.
Yeah.
So if you're hopping with
I love
somebody else, you go to the same areas. Um, I think part of what I don't like about it, maybe it's because I play Diablo. I think more for like the story campaign and playing with friends, maybe the in-game stuff you'd feel differently about. But I liked how when you go through 3, the game progresses, and I feel like I'm going through like a series of environments, new kind of set pieces, and it's always kind of changing and pulling me to the next thing. I felt like I've been in the same area almost the entire game, and I've been all over the map at this point. But there's so
Fractured
much
Peak.
back, huh?
You feel like you're in Fractured Peaks forever.
Yeah, I feel like you're in one area for way too long, but then like you come back to areas all the time because you're going back to try to clean up side quests, or you're trying to see or having to backtrack through an area to find a new path to, the next objective. And I feel like you're just in a lot of the same environments too much, too long. You get caught up in a lot of grindy stuff on the way, which slows you down. Like you'll do the same public event 1,000 times, which you could skip them, of course. I don't want nothing forcing you to do it, but I think a lot of us, at least me, is in that mindset. If I see an enemy, I'm going to go do it. Or if I see an event, I'm going to go knock it out. And I think you almost have to get in the mindset, almost like if you're playing Zelda, where there's a point where you see something off in the horizon. Sometimes it's not worth bothering with right now. You should just go on your way, focus on an objective to kind of
Especially if it's a
progress
guy
things.
holding a sign.
Exactly. So I think I've got a little fatigue in that way. And once again, part of it is the art style because it isn't an overly colorful, elaborate art style. So everything just kind of looks and feels the same to me.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I mean, the game's fun. The story's good. The cinematics are better. There's one thing that made me straight up mad though, and I don't know if you'd argue if this is an open world thing or gameplay decision. So for the first like maybe 20 hours I was playing, me and my wife were trying to do every side quest. We would just collect everything, knock it out of the side quest. We put off the story mission, and then finally we put it off so long we're like, okay, we just want to buckle down and try to knock out a lot of the story. So we started going through. We got through like a full act, and we'd pick up extra side quests along the way, but we leave them. You get to a point where your side quest log gets full, and it won't let you accept any other side quests until you go back and do other ones.
I never got to that point. I
That's
didn't play long
stupid. Are you
enough, so-
serious?
It infuriated me because I couldn't even then keep track of a side quest as I come across it and be like, well, I'll come back to it later. Now, unless I want to stop and like grind on side quests for an hour, I just have to remember, oh, there's this guy with a blue exclamation mark over his head in this town. Whenever I get a free side quest slot, I come back and pick it up and then do it. And some of these side quests are so tedious. Like, I don't know how many you guys did. There are a few gems, but a lot of them is just go to XYZ, kill so many monsters, come back and, get a checkbox that you completed a mission. Nothing overly exciting. You don't get loot rewards or not usually nothing overly interesting from it, some gold, some experience. So after a while, I think you realize some of the side quests are just, it's a grind. So I don't know. I thought that was honestly kind of infuriating. I don't really understand the rationale for why they would limit you on side quests, at least just adding it to your log. Like, I'm thinking of Skyrim, where I could collect every side quest under the sun. It would just sit in my log of 80 things to do. And then one day when I felt like it, I could come back and say, okay, now I feel like being a mage, and I go do that side quest. I didn't have to remember that there's some guy sitting over in a town I have to go talk to first. Like, I don't know. Very jarring decision to me. And that's the first time I think I straight up kind of was upset by the game. But, I mean, I guess that's a minor gripe. Game's fun. I do plan on finishing it. Me and my wife are still playing through it. I think we're almost at the end. I think there's 6 acts, and one of the acts is kind of short. So,
I am hearing another you guys, one of my other favorite YouTubers, I like the Act Man. He literally just yesterday dropped a whole like 40-minute video of him kind of ragging on the game. But I'm hearing a big problem with a lot of people is apparently the end game. A lot of people are saying that there's really not much to do, or I don't know. I'm assuming you haven't finished the main stuff.
yeah, I mean, that's not a new issue with games like this. Like, Diablo 3 didn't have much of an end game. I mean, it wasn't for years, and they finally added, like, the bounties and all those other things you could go do, the warden stuff. So, I mean, it's a game that will grow. And to be fair, like, even though there may not be a substantial end game, which I'm not at right now, if you did want to do just all the content in the main game, that's a lot of freaking content. Like, I am not at level 50 yet, haven't finished the story. Man, we must have spent 30, 40 hours on it already, just kind of putzing through it. Maybe not quite 40 hours. We spent a lot of time. So there's plenty of content to serve you well right now. I know the first season is dropping like next week or something like that, or really soon. So more content's about to come. So, I think that's fair within, a month or so of release that they have, more in-game content that's dropping. So
I don't know if we've had that type of conversation before, or just kind of talked about how, like, the length of a game, how much does it attribute to how much a game's worth, or how much you enjoy it. Where it's like, a game like before we hopped on live, a game like Zelda, where it's like, just because I spent $70 or whatever for the game, and it goes for 35 hours, like
longer than that.
Nope.
yeah. But if it had gone for 20, would it have been any less of a game if it was 10, 15 hours shorter? I don't know. So it's always an interesting dialogue.
Yeah, I'm not one who's typically in the camp of value equals quantity, if that makes sense. Like, it's nice to know that you're getting something to do for your game, but if that something to do is busy work, that I don't think it's overly exciting. Some people like that. They like the grind, where they just casually sit back, knock out a few shrines in Zelda, knock out a few dungeons in Diablo, and that's all they want to do, even if it's the same cookie cutter content. Maybe it's because I don't game quite as often as I used to. I mean, I still game a fair amount, but I'm a lot more selective with the games I choose and when I'm going to play them and how many I play. That when a game, I don't want to say waste my time, but like a game like Zelda, that traditionally is 20 to 30 hour game if you go back to some of the classic versions. And now I'm playing 100 hours, and really I don't feel like getting a much more, what's a good way to say this? Overly expanded experience, if that makes sense, right? Like, I still think if they could have stripped down Zelda by like 50%, the core of the game could have been just as good and probably more fun, probably more meaningful. It probably would have felt like some of the content was a little more unique. Game probably still would have been 50, 60 hours at a bare minimum. So I do feel like a lot of games are getting bloated, possibly for the sake of just being bloated, so people spend more time engaging with it. And I'm less of a fan of that right now. Like, I'm feeling that right now with Zelda. Well, not Zelda, I'm sorry, Diablo. And I think there are certain games I want that for, like Destiny. When we used to be big on that, I was all about the grind. Like more content, even if it's repetitive content, I'm all for because that's what you want. If it was Final Fantasy like 14 or something where you're doing like daily grind kind of stuff, sure, you want that kind of repetitive stuff so you can keep on playing forever and ever. I don't really want that from these games unless they were offering me some really unique concepts, which
Yeah.
Zelda didn't at a certain point, and Diablo doesn't offer anything new even beyond like Diablo 3. It is the same game, different facelift, a few new gameplay elements, but it's Diablo through and through. So you have to be, understanding of that and expect that going into it.
Hmm. Fair enough. So I don't. You good? Was there anything else you want? I mean,
I'm good.
did you want
I
to?
just realized I ranted for like way too long on
No, I was
just
just gonna
Diablo
say.
4.
I mean, if you want, we can always come back whenever you finish the game, and you can let us know.
Maybe if I feel like there's any big revelations to it, I honestly don't think my mind's going to change much at this point. Like, I'm going to finish the story. I'll fight some more
You'll
bosses.
kill
We'll see what the
Lilith.
end game's like. Huh?
Kill Lilith. I'm sure,
Yeah,
or
I
something.
think it's a very kind of expected roadmap for the rest of the game. I think
Mhm.
I'll enjoy it just fine. I'm not trying to come across super negative about this game. It's a fun experience, especially if you have friends. So if you got people you can play with, go for it. You're gonna have a good time. But
What are
if you
those?
have played Diablo in the past and you're expecting something new, you're not getting it.
All right. Okay. So, I guess that leaves us into tell you guys what, for this week we weren't going to do a highlights from the Horde simply because I don't know, I figured it'd be kind of weird to squeeze that into what we have, but I figured we would do another I figured we would do another 2023 high score Olympics update where we because Final
Are you
Fantasy.
skipping over your other game you played?
Oh shoot, I am. Good thing you filled me in. I didn't even
I will
look
let you
at.
skip it, but
No, I didn't even look at the thing.
I thought
I
you were
should.
just like being like, man, he talked way too long. I need to move on. So
No, it's fine.
Man, that would be really smart.
No, it totally slipped my mind. I did want to at least put in my 2 cents for this game. Before Zelda came out, I had started playing, if you don't know, the original Last of Us, and I also played The Last of Us Part 2. And, turns out Zelda came out, so I decided to put Part 2 kind of on the back burner, which ended up being such a terrible idea because, as it turns out, I was only like 4 or 5 hours away from finishing the game.
oh
Which
really?
I just thought the
Oh,
game was.
wow.
I thought the game was going to keep on going at the point where I was at. But let me see. Okay. But yeah, thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. Again, I want to try and be quick. This is it's the polish and just overall quality of this game is crazy. Like, it's a totally beautiful game. It has so many like cool and awesome set pieces. I mean, I guess just kind of getting right into the controversial stuff. I mean, Phoenix got to play. You played this before me, right? And I don't remember. Did you have an overall positive, or did you love it, or were you kind of middling?
I didn't love it. I liked it. I liked it more, I think, than
The
the general
majority of the,
consensus. Most
yeah.
people really didn't, and I think the reason people didn't like it a lot, I don't know, it was
Again, do we want
influenced by
to?
a lot of things.
Phoenix or Keita said he doesn't care about spoilers, so
Yeah, Metal, this is your chance if you don't want us
yeah,
to
if you
spoil
don't
Last
want,
of Us 2.
I really don't care.
okay, because
Yeah,
this
I
has
liked it though.
some good stuff.
Now, one question I have for you before you get into the kind of details of it, because I know when this game first came out, you watched a Let's Play of it, I think, right?
Hmm.
And you were kind of in that super negative camp, like, oh, that looks terrible for XYZ reason. You kind of just, I think, fell in with the camp that was complaining
Yeah, I
about
did
it. Has your opinion changed now that you've not only played the game, but also now you've played the
experience
first
the
game, you've
yeah.
seen the TV show, like you have the whole, expectation of what this game is about, the history of it, all of that.
Well, I do think in terms of the narrative and in terms of the overall direction of this game, I would say I still hold fairly fast to some of my opinions from watching that Let's Play. But in terms of like the gameplay and again like the quality and how much fun the game is, no, it is a great game. Like I don't see how you could argue it's not. Like the quality, the way the gameplay is, the flow, like the environments,
I
overall.
still didn't love the gameplay, to be honest,
Really?
but
I thought it was great.
I thought it was fine. and I'm not trying to come down
Maybe it's
too
because
hard
I
on it,
played it
but
right after playing the OG Last of Us. We're like
yeah, you
going,
might notice the changes a
yeah,
little more.
yeah, yeah, you're right. Like going right in from one directly into that. It to me it felt like a decent jump up in terms of how it felt. Um, I guess just getting again into the. I think the more interest, even though the gameplay and everything is fantastic, the more interesting aspect is, of course, the narrative and the decision making with what to do with certain characters. I do think it's going to be this game's forever. The dialogue around it's going to be super interesting because it's going to be a conversation as to like the world of The Last of Us and what the themes are for The Last of Us, right? Where like I get it that the theming is supposed to be that this world is so horrible and so bad that there is really nothing to be saved. There is no one's, a lot of people coming out of this game were talking about, oh, the character of Ellie is ruined and people hate Abby and there's no one likes any of these characters, which I agree with. I think coming out of this game, really none of the characters ended up being all that likable. And the game tries hard to get you to like some of them, and I don't know, man. It just ended. I ended up walking away thinking, man, this world sucks. Which
Yeah.
I guess that's the point. But I do remember the first game being a little bit more like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This game, there is like no.
See, I kind of disagree with the light at the end of the tunnel. Like the first game, I think tries to set you up to have that expectation. Like, all right, you're gonna get to the end, and either Ellie's gonna, have the cure and save everybody, or her and Joel are gonna have the perfect ending. And then at the very last minute, the whole game just rips the rug out from under you. Which I
Mhm.
think that was the kind of big reveal that this game was never about having a perfect hopeful ending. Like this is a bleak world, beginning to end. Nothing is perfect. Everything is messy. And I think that's true when you look at every character. There is no perfect protagonist in this. Like most games, most stories, you're used to having like you have your protagonist who is true and true, the good guy that you follow behind the entire time. You support his decisions. And Joel, of course, was set up to kind of be that in the first game.
Protagonist is supposed to
And
be
then
you. Yeah, most of the time
well, that's
in a
what
game.
you
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
right? You're trying to project yourself onto these characters
Mhm.
until Joel makes his stand at the end, and then you have to decide if you agree with that or not. And I think it just goes to show that human nature is messy, right? Most people are not altruistic all the time, and he made a decision that not everybody's going to agree with. And then you see that repercussion fall over into Ellie, fall over into Abby. So I think that's a very human thing. I think this takes a very bleak look at it. I think it's almost more not that there is a general sense of hope out there. It's kind of it gives you those moments of live in the moment, appreciate what you have while you have it, kind of thing. Like I think it's even like the whole point of the ending, or one of the points of the ending, is like Ellie can't be happy in the moment, right? She's letting her revenge, her anger, kind of cloud everything to push her into worsening her situation when she had a moment to be happy, enjoy the moment with
It is.
her partner, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. So.
I just think though, to an extent within the game, it starts to become the what is it, the self-fulfilling prophecy, where it's like
Mhm.
these characters are constantly complaining, constantly uh, uh, depressed, and constantly angry about their situation in their world, but they're constantly also making decisions that the repercussions are revenge. You know what I
Make it
mean?
worse. Yeah.
Make it worse, and it's just
Which is
like,
a very human thing to do, though. Like that's what we
yeah,
do all the time, right? We think off emotion more often than probably our mind, and that leads us to make decisions in a moment that we shouldn't. We get angry, we get vengeful, we get upset, and we make decisions in those compromised mental states, and it leads you towards hopefully nothing as severe as what we see in this
oh,
game, but I
better
think that's a
not,
very
better
human
not cross me.
perspective to take. So, but you're right. This is a very bleak game. Like it
Yes.
doesn't pull any punches, and it's pretty much showing you that yeah, don't expect anything good that happens in this game to stay good for very long.
Yeah. And again, I feel like that's the more interesting thing. I mean, I remember when this game came out, that's what everybody was talking about. I mean, for the most part, I don't think the characters, I will disagree with some people, I don't think the characters are as dislikable as other people thought. Like, um, I don't think they are super likable, but I didn't like walk away hating anybody from this game. I just thought it was,
And we're talking Abby, right? That's
yeah, well, yeah, I feel like the only flaw with the Abby character is I think the game tries a bit hard to get you to like her, and I get why they do that is to um I guess they're trying to contrast her versus just Ellie and where Ellie
Yeah.
is at that time, and it's just like again, it's very like self-fulfilling prophecy where like people are happy, they get screwed over by other people, and then it's just a constant rotating door of people
Hmm.
screwing each other over and going after each other, and I guess that's the way the game kind of ends it, where it's just like, that constant cycle of revenge and stuff. It kind of just leaves you with nothing and barren.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, where do they even go from here? I mean, nope, everything is gone basically. So it's
Well, at the end, there's a chance there's still. Oh man, was it a firefly? I can remember now. Camp they're trying to find at the end because they hear like, don't they get like a signal or something? There's some hint that there's a next headquarters or base to go to.
Abby and I can't remember
I can't remember
the
the
character's
other
name.
character.
Uh, but I thought that was a trap because that's how they get kidnapped.
Well, the first one was a trap because that's how they get kidnapped. But I think there was a second one after that. I don't
Really?
know.
Because they go to a house where they're underneath. There's a basement, and
Yeah, I remember
yes,
that.
there's like a firefly signal, and then they reach that signal, and as soon as they walk out, they get jumped and kidnapped.
After the end of the game, after the Ellie Abby fight, like in
And
the
the
water.
island or whatever it's called.
Yeah, after that, there's something, but that's neither here or there.
Okay.
I mean, but you're right. I mean, this whole game very dim. I mean, it does have a somewhat quote unquote happy note where Ellie at least realizes the path she's taking and basically pulls herself out of it instead of taking the step that Abby was about or did with Joel. She breaks the cycle essentially. But the point being is, it's too late because when she gets back home, partner's gone, kid's gone,
Can't play the
all of them. So,
guitar. Lost her fingers. It's
yeah,
like,
it's sad.
yeah.
Sad. Um, do you feel like, and I think you kind of answered this because you said they kind of tried too hard to make you like Abby. I think part of my issue with that is how long they make you play as Abby. Like, this was a
It's more
long
than
game.
more than probably Ellie. I would say.
Hmm?
I say you probably play as Abby a little more than Ellie.
It's real close. And I think it's too much. I mean, I know what they were trying to do there. I feel like they could have cut the Abby section probably in half, and they even could have cut some of the Ellie stuff down. Like, this was
Yeah,
a long game almost for the
way
sake of
too
being a little
long.
too long.
Yeah,
Yeah. For what it is.
yeah. I agree. I don't think it was totally for naught. I mean, there were a couple sections with Abby that are really cool. Like the whole skyscraper section is one of my
Mm.
favorite sections in the whole game. Like the whole, you're way up in the air and
Walking
you're
through, yeah.
traversing, yeah, and then you get into the skyscraper, and as it turns out, of course, it's completely filled with clickers everywhere. But
Honestly, I mean, I liked that segment. If I recall correctly, I didn't like that section of the story where she's trying to save, and I can't remember the character's name,
uh,
but where they go to that village, like that whole side story where it's not Abby versus Ellie, it's this other thing going on. I mean, I get what they were trying to say with that
I
story,
agree with you
but
though.
it bogged it down. Like you could have knocked out what 6 hours of that game probably, or maybe a
Hmm.
little shy of that by yanking that out. And I don't think you would have lost too much. I think the core of the game would have still been there, and it would have felt a lot tighter. But yeah, is what it is.
No. Again, there were a couple sections I loved. That skyscraper one was one in particular. I loved the whole the museum section with Joel and Ellie. The whole, it was like a prelude, or what is it? It was a flashback kind of to
Yeah,
a special moment between them, which that was like one of the best. Of course, the section with both of them in it was one of my favorites. But um, do we want to talk about Joel? Uh, Do you wish he would have been in the game a little bit more?
I think it was in enough.
Are you okay
Um,
with what happened there?
yeah,
How it was done?
yeah. It seemed very natural. I mean, I like Joel, so I mean, I would like to keep him around. I'm a little sad that they, knocked him out, but it's not like he was gone for the entire game. You had lots of flashbacks. You had moments that gave him closure. There was closure to him and Ellie's story. I mean, it's all very bittersweet.
I mean, you're not supposed to like it. He's
Yeah.
like the main character that you think,
And even if you agree with his choice in the first game for what he did to save essentially his daughter, um, you can certainly understand why other people would not in a world like that. Like this other girl, not knowing that was a relationship between Joel and Ellie, just saw this guy murder her dad. So she
Hmm.
was just going on her vengeance streak. So, not saying that vengeance is ever right, but I understand the perspective there, and I definitely understand why Joel got taken out the way he did. It was brutal, but this game is brutal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was honestly fine with the majority of story beats. As dark as they were and as bummery as they were, I thought it was very fitting, and I thought the story they told was a good one.
I tell you, I was very middling. Like, I thought the game was very good. I enjoyed it. It's definitely not a game I think I ever care about playing again. Like, if I'm gonna replay it, I'm probably gonna replay the much shorter 8 to 10 hour first game, and probably like I feel like that game's replayability is much higher considering the length of it, in my opinion.
I
But
guess so. Here's another question. 'Cause I mean, I agree with you. Like, I wouldn't play Last of Us 2 again. I probably wouldn't play one again either, but that's a different story. Do you feel like this was a necessary sequel? Like, would have been fine as leaving it at Last of Us 1? Like, even if you think Last of Us 2 story was good, was it needed?
I don't think so. I like, and it's sad to say because like again, the quality and the gameplay overall is fantastic. I don't feel like there's anything to really take away from this story, even though like I get the theming, I get the beats. It's just not a game that you walk away feeling like anybody has really learned anything. Even though I guess that's that
I mean,
point of
that's
Ellie
true.
letting her go. I guess is the only thing at the end. But
Yeah, but I mean, that's got the whole point. Both Ellie and Abby do learn something at the end, for better or for worse. Like, they both let go. Because Abby could have decided to keep hunting Ellie at the end of that too, and she doesn't. And then same thing for Ellie. So I mean, there's certainly lessons that were learned. I like games that end very ambiguous though. I like stories that end ambiguous just because it leaves something up to you to kind of fill
mm-hmm.
in. Not that I don't sometimes do like a very clean cut and dry. This is how the story goes. For a game like this that has so many ambiguous beats already to it, I feel like writing or filling in the blanks is almost a disservice sometimes because it takes some of the thought out of it a little bit. And not that it invalidates what your head canon is. I know a lot of people will kind of go with that route, but I like the idea of the game ending at one, and then you imagine what Joel and Ellie's relationship would have been like after the first game, and it could be anything you want it to be, and you could justify it however you want it to be. And I think that's a more interesting way to approach the story. But not that the story they gave you is bad. I just like I like the ambiguous ending of the first one.
Do you hope that in the TV show when they cover this game, which they are, they say, do you hope they don't change anything? There's nothing altered you would want to see?
What would they change? Like, I'm sure they'll change a bunch of little story beats. I can't imagine they'll change the big story beats. And what would I want them to even change them to? Not
Yeah.
kill Joel? They kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
do we want?
The killing of Joel is one of the biggest things in the game. I feel like is important to the theming because again, the whole theming is people's decisions, you know, coming back to bite them, and it's like,
But there would be no part two if Joel didn't get knocked off in the beginning. The whole story is built around that.
yeah,
So I don't know. I feel like it's going to follow it relatively closely. I mean, the first season followed the first game pretty closely. I mean, there'll be small little stories that change, but I think overall it's going to be the same thing. I have a feeling this is going to be two more seasons. I think season two is going to be the Ellie half, and then season two is going to be Abby, and then the wrap up at the end. So we
can you
got two more seasons of this coming.
can you even have a third game if everyone's learned their lessons and now there's no more revenge and nobody
You could. I guess the question is, what does it center on? Like,
the third game would have to
does
have
it
its
center?
own theming if it would have to change
Yeah, I
if
mean,
that's
does
the
it center
case.
on Abby? Does it go back to Ellie? Like, I don't know. But once again, like, I think at this point, any story you write is not necessarily going to be better than the thought of where you could take the story. Like right now, Ellie's sitting here with this blank slate. She's already kind of burned all of her bridges. I think kind of contemplating where her story goes is more meaningful than if somebody just wrote out a story and be like, yep, this is what happened to Ellie after that. I think it almost cheapens this ending somehow. But either way, we're ranting on this a little
No,
bit, so I don't want to keep us on it all night.
yeah,
Metal's gonna fall asleep there. He hasn't said a word in like 45 minutes,
no,
so
I agree.
there he goes.
I didn't want to go too crazy with it. Overall, it is a game that must be played. I think if especially if you played the first game. I mean, I don't see why you would want to jump right into this one if you haven't. But yeah, it's
Well,
fun.
you did. You didn't play the first game. You didn't watch the show because it wasn't a thing then. You
Oh
just
yeah, fair
watched the
enough.
Let's Play of 2. And I think at the time I even gave you a hard time about it because I'm like, I don't think you can really appreciate 2 without playing 1. Like, you could have a negative opinion of 2, and I'm not going to argue with it too much. I get that. But I will complain if you haven't at least played or watched the first game because
You can't say
that's what
that
leads
now.
into the whole thing. Can't say it now, but your opinion has shifted a little bit. So
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
it's not a bad game. In fact, it's a great game. It just, I don't know. It's not like to me. It's not as all time memorable as playing the first one was. Like the first one was like
Fair enough.
really cool for me. Um, okay, so moving on from that.
Let's give Metal a chance to talk.
Oh yeah, now he's going to talk about
I wanna
the
talk.
the game he hasn't played yet. So we're going to move on
Yeah,
to
my score is pretty up there.
yeah.
Well,
Actually,
I didn't even look at the score for
I have
it. I'm
it
way behind.
somewhere. But yeah, we're going to move on
Yeah,
to
last time I checked.
We're going to move on to an update to our high score Olympics. During the break, Final Fantasy 16 came out. And yeah, so we're going to take a peek into exactly where that is. Boop, 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 got that. Okay, so just taking a look. Let's see. I had it updated as of what? I had it of. Oh, so I'm like a little out of date. I'm like 2 weeks behind. So maybe I doubt the scores have shifted all that much. But
I
as
just pulled it up. So the Metacritic on FF16 is 87 at the
it
moment.
went down one, so I had 88. So 87, that's still pretty good. I mean, that's a very good game. I mean, I feel like when it comes to Metacritic, as long as it's in like 80s and above, that's like great. Once it gets into 70s, it's just like still pretty good, but not like amazing.
Yeah, it's got a strong user score too, 8.3. So people are liking it.
No.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
what games does that leave Gamer? So he's got 16, Rebirth is pushed back. He's got Diablo 4. Baldur's Gate, I think they did announce that game's actually coming out now this year.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so Baldur's Gate will definitely be out, it sounds like. And, I don't remember. Armored Core, I feel like, is slated for this year as well. So I'm thinking
I
he's
would
going to
think
end the
so.
year with just one game missing.
And I'm potentially missing 2 right now
2,
because Kerbal Space Program 2 is still in early access.
Mm-hmm.
Trying
And
to
your
see.
Suicide Squad is
Suicide
gone.
Squad.
Yeah, Suicide Squad is out, and they don't even have a review or anything for Kerbal 2 yet. So I might lose this by default.
I'm
We'll
in
see.
trouble. I'm in trouble as well, man. I mean, I haven't heard anything about Hades 2 or Hollow Knight since they got announced, so it's like,
Hollow Knight's, 'cause it was Silksong, right?
yeah.
No, yeah, Silksong. I thought I heard something about that recently. It was still slated for this year.
Mm,
Hades 2, I haven't heard anything from in a while, but I'm pretty sure they said this year. I don't know.
mm.
We'll see. I'm actually now I'm hoping that they both get pushed off to like 2025, so
I
I'll
hate
have a chance again.
I hate to say it. I actually think Gamer is the one who's looking like he might be able to pull it through, because if 16 holds up and Diablo 4 holds up, that's better than my Legacy, my Hogwarts. And if I lose Hades and Hollow Knight, he definitely has it anyways. So
Well, you got Starfield right there, so it's kind of like
Starfield,
that's been kind of like up in the air.
I'm predicting in the 80s for Starfield. Honestly, I'm predicting like low 80s.
that's what I'm
Ooh.
thinking too. I'm thinking because their games are always so buggy, and I think bugs.
I think too the expectations on this are just blown out of the water. Like people know it has to be some huge game for Xbox. I mean Bethesda, even for all of its shortcomings of other games, I mean Bethesda does make pretty classic games, so they are, I think, really hinging on this being some major release, like 90s across the board, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I think this is going to be a fun game, Skyrim in space, but it's not going to be the revolutionary greatest RPG of all time, which I still can't believe that Microsoft said that. This is the most important RPG ever made.
Yeah.
Like, they set themselves up right there to, I think, have some unrealistic expectations.
It would have to be big, because I remember. I mean, you guys probably do as well. But like when Skyrim came out, man, that game was like huge. Like I remember everybody was talking about Skyrim, and maybe times are different, but like I remember, and Skyrim even to this day, like it gets announced on a new console like every other day. So it's
Yeah.
like,
I mean, no matter how you look
Skyrim-
at it, if you play it, you're gonna get sucked into it. It's just really well done.
mm-hmm.
I think Skyrim, though, I mean, right, it was a different time. I don't think Bethesda had quite the history they have now with some super buggy releases. And at the time, Skyrim was this fairly innovative, expansive RPG that you hadn't had many things quite like it yet. Unless they do something really crazy here with Starfield that we're not anticipating, I feel like it's going to feel like just an iteration of what they've done in the past. But maybe I'll be wrong. I'll tell you, I think it really reset my expectations when they either is in a trailer or they said it where you don't get to just fly off the planet like a No Man's Sky style. It's you're on the planet, you load, and then you're in space. And not that, that's a bad decision. I know there's limitations to it, but something about that just really kind of checked my expectations that this is not going to be the limitless, expansive, universe-wide RPG they're kind of selling it out to be. So,
Well, also something else recently that Todd Howard said, but they said apparently there's like close to 1,000 planets you can go to, but apparently, apparently they've also said there's only like, I don't know, a percentage or handful of those that are actually like inhabited by like human life and stuff. So
he said a
like
bunch
No
of them are
Man's
gonna
Sky.
have like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be like the first No Man's Sky with a little more curated content on it. And I mean, No Man's Sky people love now, but
but it
it's
took them
gone
years
through a lot.
They had to do some things to that game.
And we still don't quite know, like, these planets, so we know we don't land ourselves, but like, if I land, can I go all the way around the planet, or can I only zoom in? Can I only fly into like 4 locations on the planet?
That's a good point. I didn't think about it. I would probably guess that that you just
like there's like
land at predefined
sections,
hub areas,
which that would be more
don't know.
similar to Outer Worlds. I think did something similar to that, where like you
Yeah.
weren't on the whole planet. You just, here's a town in this planet. You know what I mean?
Oh boy.
And I'll tell you, I mentioned this last. I know we're way off the Final Fantasy talk, but
Oh shoot!
like they haven't even like talked about like alien races very much, which feels really odd for a game like this.
There's
I don't know,
aliens,
so-
but they're non-humanoid. Everything's all
Yeah, which I think that's really disappointing. Something like that would add, I think, a lot of character to this game, make it a little more unique and interesting. And so far, it's just fighting raiders and like robots, I think, or something like. I don't know. I'm worried there's gonna be a little bit of blandness to this game. Not that you can't love a little bit of blandness and still enjoy what the whole package is, but I'm not expecting this to be
It's
a
like,
10 out of 10 by any means.
It's like back in the day when they announced Andromeda Mass Effect, and me and you were like, wouldn't that be really cool if the main character was like a Turian or something? Like I remember that talk where we were like, don't let us play as human, and we ended up playing as basic Rider,
Really weird looking humans.
the Rider twins or whatever they were called.
Anyway, though, Final Fantasy is looking good. Metal, I know you have like the Super Fantasy Collector's Edition, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
What's in that again? I'm just curious.
It's a massive statue, a couple of banners, and a steel book. This is just off the top of my head.
You don't deserve it. You haven't even played it.
I don't deserve it. 2 games came out within like, within a small amount of time. 3 games actually
You gotta have no
I
life.
have.
Just no
Yeah,
life.
you also have a little tiny human that I think slows things down for you a little bit.
Human.
Question for
Final
you
Fantasy.
before you get too far into it. I know we've talked a little bit about some of the not discourse about the game, but people are claiming this is not a true Final Fantasy game due to lack of RPG elements and party systems, etc. Has that turned you off at all, Metal? Because I know you're a fairly diehard Final Fantasy guy back to a lot of the original games. So does hearing that worry you? Or are you pretty open to that concept, or what are your thoughts?
I'm usually pretty open to that kind of stuff. I mean, I had my fair share of like, old school Final Fantasy games, and I really enjoy the turn-based type style. But at the end of the day, it's like, if they're trying something different with the series, I'm okay with that. As long as the story's really good and a lot of the stuff doesn't veer too far from what they normally go through. Like that, what do they call them? Eidolons again?
No,
This
one-
icons.
The
Like,
icons.
No.
Icons? Oh god, they always name them something just different.
Sure.
You know, whenever they talk about Guardian Forces or whatever, as long as it's all within like that kind of like the same shtick, I'm okay with it.
Man,
Like,
in the game, those icons are so freaking cool. Like
I bet they are.
they're awesome. Like it again, it's literally like just kaiju bonanza. Just
Kaiju awesome.
it's like kaiju Dragon Ball.
Yeah. But yeah,
That is
to
a
answer-
conversation. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but to answer your question, no, it's not going to sway me. Like, I'm always open to seeing what the developers have because, I mean, they cannot pull a horrible game.
Just imagine
this is a huge title for them to be doing, risky stuff. But
Right.
if they're willing to do a little bit of risky stuff, then sure.
Well, it sounds like it's almost not risky. All of the changes they've made, I think, were made to be more consumer mass appeal friendly. Like, I think that was one of the arguments by
Really,
what's the director's name?
Yoshi P?
He said he went to action based combat because he thought more people were going to like that. And the younger generation is not going to appreciate turn based, which I don't agree with.
I believe
but it's also paid off.
I believe one of the main game developers was a guy who like worked on Devil May Cry though.
Yeah, they brought in the Devil May Cry. I don't know if it was his director, creator, or
Well,
whatever.
that's
it is,
why
but
it feels so like hack and slashy is because that guy was just like, I want to make Final Fantasy, but Devil May Cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a topic, and not for now, for the sake of time, but I think we should revisit is when a franchise decides to take a completely different direction with the genre that it's used to, does that impact the fact that it's part of that franchise anymore? Like, a lot of people are arguing this is not a Final Fantasy game, or a lot of people are arguing the new Zelda game is not a true Zelda game. And, I don't think those are fully valid points, but I'd be curious to kind of get your take on what makes a game the game, right? What makes a Final Fantasy game Final Fantasy? Is it the gameplay? Is it the story? What makes a Zelda game?
Is it just
a Zelda
hearing?
game?
Well,
Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's a culmination of nostalgia. Maybe it has to have a certain narrative. Maybe it has to have a party system. I don't know. So as of right now,
do you think it's even fair to for lack of argument for the Final Fantasy VII like Dirge of Cerberus? I mean, that game was first person or third person shooter. But that was completely different, and it's within the seven franchise, which is
game.
I know it's not a mainline Final Fantasy game, and I think that's your argument there.
Right. And once again, it's a very it's a broad topic, and obviously there probably is no real answer here. It's very much subjective on how you feel about the franchise. But I'd be curious to get your opinions on it. Like, if we're thinking like mainline entries for a franchise, what's the core of that? Or what should be the core? If there should be a core.
It's like people that are like, oh, Dragon Ball GT is not Dragon Ball. Get out of here. It's like, well,
yeah.
I mean, it has those characters. I mean,
yeah, and some people don't like Super.
It was made by Toriyama.
So either way, another time. I won't keep us any more on that.
No. I would just say, imagine Game of Thrones hack and slash with Final Fantasy characters. That's the best thing I could think of. It's the storyline is the theming is very Game of Thronesy. The gameplay is very hack and slashy, and then there's Final Fantasy stuff all over the place.
To me, that just sounds fun.
It is just fun, but no, some people don't seem to think that way. Okay, so so we're gonna move on to speedrun news.
Man, we've been going a while.
I know.
What's the timer at?
We are just under an hour, so.
Okay.
Let me move over. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Oh shoot, I forgot to start the timer. So here we go. 3, 2, and
wait, how long? Wait, oh, we're doing 15 minutes?
yeah, we normally do.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you wanted to shorten it, but that's fine.
Oh, do you want to? I mean...
No, just leave it. You already did it.
Okay.
Well.
Here we go. So, moving on to topic number 1. Not going to dig too deep into this one, seeing as how we did a whole episode about some of the major announcements coming from it. But essentially, if you don't know, Microsoft or the FTC lost its lawsuit against Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard. And then immediately after, the FTC appealed that decision, which that happened earlier today. So, what do you guys think?
Sony's done. Sony better just pack it up There's no chance anymore. It's Microsoft from
No
here on
more,
out. That's
no
it.
more, no
Call of
more
Duty
Sony,
is the only game we're ever going to play ever again.
no PS6. No.
Nope. Oh, just
No.
write it off now.
How long
Oh boy.
before like how long before Diablo 4 gets on Game Pass? That's one of the big things I feel like. That's got to happen like next week or whenever it officially finalizes.
It's interesting because we've heard several statements from like the Diablo directors and Activision be like, nope, that is not going to happen very definitively, but they're not going to have the say
They're
in
not
that
going to
here
have the
pretty
say in
soon.
that. I mean,
And you've also had Microsoft from this court hearing basically come out and say, we have to be profitable immediately. Now, would that be profitable enough for 'em? I guess that's the question, but probably. So I don't know. I feel like it'll be on there at some point.
mhm.
Maybe they'll start with the old Diablos first. Like we'll see like the Diablo 2 Resurrected and then like Diablo 3 to kind of give us a,
or
you know,
maybe
a,
or maybe like World of Warcraft.
Or
Maybe
Overwatch.
World of Warcraft would be huge to throw on
there's
Xbox.
a lot there. Well, yeah, I mean, who
They, they
knows?
they have a huge, they have a pretty decent library that they can put on there, and they'll probably make their money back pretty quickly.
It'll be very interesting to see because, like, right now, WoW is still a monthly subscription,
That
right?
would be the
So,
weird thing to yeah.
would that get wrapped up into your Game Pass subscription? Because if so, like, say
Oh
you only had to
man,
pay like an extra, I don't know, $5 a month to your Game Pass subscription to now have WoW
man,
linked up
that's
to
like
it.
Yeah.
years of game right there.
How do
What's going to
Holy
happen
you
is you're going to
crap!
immediately have anybody who's in World of Warcraft all of a sudden become Game Pass subscribers.
Oh
Their
my
numbers are going to shoot through
god,
the roof. Now, I don't know the viability of the finances there, but that's an idea. I don't know.
you
that's a
kill that
hell
which
of,
has no life?
that's crazy. No life at that
I don't
point.
know. Do you think the appeal is going to go through?
No, I think it's going to get shot down. Pretty probably pretty soon. I would think.
What about you, Metal?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, it's
That's hard
the
to say.
same judge is the one that does the ruling on the appeal as well. So
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine she would overturn her own decision. And
There has to be something like something foundational there that didn't happen right or went wrong in the court hearing for it to be appealed. I think the judge's basic decision on like the whole reason the FTC was going against them was to show that Microsoft was going to ruin competitive entries by the other industry leaders, right? But the thing is here, Microsoft has come out and basically said that we are going to do the opposite. If anything, this whole thing has pushed Microsoft into a position to basically do what the FTC wanted all along. That's what the judge was saying is like the FTC got what they wanted.
mhm.
Microsoft has signed contracts. If anything, it's now forced Microsoft to be more accessible with their new IPs than they were possibly going to be
well,
before. And that just loses the FTC's foundation.
well, apparently Rebecca Valentine, who is an IGN journalist who's been covering it, she phrased it pretty interestingly, where she said, the one of the major cruxes in the argument that the problem that Sony made is they focused too much on how it would affect Sony and they didn't
Hmm.
focus enough on how it would affect
The
the
gamers, the
gamers.
consumer.
Maybe not immediately, but long term would have been the best
Mhm.
way of looking at it. And they just focused too much in on like how it would affect Sony and what Sony would have to do to compete.
And
And it,
Microsoft's response to that was I think a better option because instead of them focusing on just how they're responding to Sony, they went ahead and made a deal with Nintendo. They made a deal with
cloud
Nvidia.
services, yeah.
They basically showed that we're giving as many consumers as possible a way to access Call of Duty specifically. And honestly, hinging on Call of Duty might be been a bad approach because now all Microsoft's had to do is guarantee Call of Duty, right? No one was even worried about the rest of the
Was
Activision
it
IP or
King
catalog.
with all the mobile games is what people think.
Not even just King, but I mean, think about Overwatch, think about Diablo. Nobody was, having any issues about those games being exclusive, and then they probably should have. They should have been really focusing on the entire Activision catalog
Hmm.
and what kind of issue that would be if that was locked down or restrictive. But now Microsoft's appeased everybody, right? Everybody can have Call of Duty, but they might still keep Diablo. They might keep World of Warcraft, and I mean, they are going to more than likely. So. I don't know.
I still
I
think
think this is probably a win across the board now for Microsoft. I think it's probably going to shift how the CMA stuff goes. I think it's going to shift any other regulatory bodies who are having issues. I think you're going to lose a lot of ground now.
I still don't think I don't know if Call of Duty will ever go exclusive. I just don't think financially it makes sense for Xbox to do that. They're probably they're going to make up that money so quickly by just keeping it multi-console. To me, it makes no sense. It makes sense to make a Starfield exclusive because that is a single player game that you can use to be your console seller, something that'll help sell consoles. Call of Duty, I don't think that would. I don't know.
The only reason they'd probably go exclusive with it is if there wasn't enough reason to have it on the other systems. Like, let's say that by them having Activision and Call of Duty, it does cause a shift where more gamers do end up going over to Microsoft. If there ever is that paradigm shift where Microsoft does become the market leader, and it's 10, 15 years down the line, then it makes sense to make Call of Duty Last Golden Goose exclusive, because that would then kill off, or not kill off, but really put a detriment on the other industry leaders. So Sony at that point would have would have less of a playing field there. So would Nintendo, but Nintendo's always going to have their own thing. So it's not a thing that would happen right now. This is like 15 years out, maybe.
Okay, real quick. We spent a lot of time, but I do want to throw in one more thing. Another interesting aspect to this is when the acquisition goes through, how long, because one of the biggest things they have to do is fix Activision Blizzard. So how long does Bobby Kotick stay on? And because I would think you have to resolve that quickly. I mean, he's going to get paid regardless. He's going to get a fat, mattress full of money to land on when he leaves. So
it's hard to say. Like, honestly,
I'm sure there's contractual
controversy.
So maybe there's something yeah.
I think he might stick around for a while now. Like, when the whole news first broke, that was the only thing on anybody's mind was, okay, when does Kotick get out? But that's been pushed to the back burner now with all this legal drama going on. I think a lot of people have not been focusing. Not that they've forgotten, but if Kotick just kind of sticks around for a while, I'd love to see him go. I think they might keep him around though for a while. If there's not pitchforks outside his window, he might stick around.
Well, the main reason why I think he'll stay on is because if you're Microsoft, you want, like you said, you want to see immediate return of investment. So you probably want to keep Kotick in the position as long as you can, so you can figure out how Blizzard Activision works. So it's like by immediately getting rid of him, you know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like you probably want to dip your toes in.
I think people want Kotick gone, but I think at the same time, I think probably hopefully the bigger overarching change now will just be Microsoft now having a hand in all the structural stuff in Activision Blizzard, like their organizational policies and whatnot. If they have a bigger hand in there and they're observing things a little more, it's not all just in-house in Activision. You got Microsoft now looking over everything. Hopefully that's going to clean up a lot of the harassment issues and stuff that's been going on. But once again, it's yet to be seen.
Real quick, did you want to jump in? I think I was going to see if you wanted to introduce this next topic.
Sure. So real quick, there was an article that came out by Kotaku, because apparently it's the only place we get news from anymore. That basically was saying that classic games are endangered. And this has been an issue for a while. We know that your old retro games harder to access than they used to be. So the point being here, when they say endangered, it's kind of misleading. It's not that, your old classic games are gone. You can still find a retro store and get them, although it's not the easiest way. They're saying there's no modern way to buy classic games, or at least a majority of them. It's like, what is that, 88% of old classic games. I know they talk specifically about like the first original Yakuza. You can't buy that on anything. It's not on a PlayStation Now streaming. It's not on a digital download anywhere. You can get the remake, but arguably that is a different game. And there's, thousands of other games that are in the same position. You can't get them legally, digitally, or in any other format now.
I'm just noticing, I didn't know Kelsey Lewin apparently is the co-director of the Video Game Heritage Foundation, which, that's interesting. You were just at one of her stores just the other week or something.
Yep. So what are your thoughts on this? Is this a big concern for you guys? Are you worried about all these classic games just up and disappear in one day, or what are your thoughts?
Well, it's going to obviously go up in horrible price, which is already pretty terrible as it is. As a collector, I mean, it's already getting really hard to find them, let alone even play them. And then with these companies coming down and cracking the the mighty hammer on piracy, it's just been getting really, really crazy to even Not to name names.
Nintendo.
You know, ceases and desist letters and taking your computers and destroying them. It's like, and banning you from everything possible. It's just one of those things where it's like it's gonna get really difficult to find them if you're gonna be wanting to play specific games. I don't know, man. It's gonna be really hard to find them.
It's
Like,
at the point where,
Chaz?
like, no, I was gonna say, it's at the point, like, he's saying that, like, a game I've been wanting for, like, the longest time, the original Silent Hill, I'm at the point where I'm just like, I should just throw out $100 and just go freaking buy it. You know, I've been looking for it
But
for
that
so
is a game you can get digitally on like your PS5.
Yes, yeah, but I want it.
yeah, but you want the physical version. And that's the thing. It's like, if I want, like, I don't know, a game like Zack and Wiki for the Wii, you're not going to be able to find that anywhere. Hell, you have Dokapon Kingdom. Like,
I think that's part of the
you know.
argument too here. Like the Silent Hill one arguably wouldn't fall into this category as an Endangered because it's accessible. You're only choosing to go out and pay $100 for it because you're a physical collector, which I am as well. So I'm not trying to come down on that parade. But like a
it's the
Zack and
other
Wiki
game.
that may not be, yeah.
It's
So the other question, do you think that the other publishers are going to come through and they are going to one day start offering all their old games available on modern platforms, whether it be through streaming, subscription, digital downloads, or are they just be okay letting all these classic games just essentially, quote unquote, die off?
I mean, some you can't even get anymore because of whatever company up and done. Like, they're gone. Like, you can't find them, and you're not going to find games anymore. They're just going to go away, and the preservation is just going to just disappear.
True, but I mean, so a lot of these companies, though, although you're right, not going to get 100%. But do you think that these major publishers are going to have the incentive to try to fix this? Where, okay, you know what? There's people out there that want to play all these retro games. We're going to make an effort to try to get 90% of our old back catalog available digitally on a modern platform. Do you ever think that's going to happen?
Atari did it,
I
no one really cares about
agree,
Atari.
I agree with you.
I
I
mean,
just
just think PlayStation. Let's just focus on just one. Just kind of nail
I
it
just
down.
don't
I know
think
you
the
got something to say.
incentive isn't there though for them to, like, why?
They've been
Yeah.
preserving some of them online on their platform, which is great. I mean, I was able to get Final Fantasy VII, and I mean, those, mind you, those are bigger games, but if I was to get, like, I don't know, Legacy of Kain, you know, those are some hard games to come by. Like,
Yeah.
if they had them, I'd play them, you know, as buggy and weird as they were.
Gosh, I forgot.
I think, Chaz, you kind of hit it. Like, what is their incentive? Like, the big classic hits that they know are going to bring in some people, sure, we'll see
But
those.
not
But
everybody.
the really obscure PS1 title that 5 people in the world care about, they're not
Gone.
ever going to bother. And that's going to be less and less, too. Like, flash forward 30 years from now, the people who grew up playing Final Fantasy VII, not going to care about anymore, right?
They're
Or
going
at
to
least
care
not in
about the
same
new
way.
version, at least, you know?
Yeah, or they're going to be dead.
Or
or you
that
think 50 years from now, right? When that generation that played those original games, I think about Atari games right now, right? The people who enjoyed Atari are starting to get up there in age, right? So they're probably not overly concerned about reliving their nostalgic Atari days. Atari or whoever's out there probably isn't going to then jump through hoops to get those games available. It's going to be the same thing for Sony and their early PlayStation catalog. It'll be the same thing for Xbox at some point, even Nintendo. So I think there's a good chance you will see a lot of these games just not be available, even though they could be relatively easily. You see how Nintendo's doing it, though. They're picking like one game a month just to kind of string you along. It's a marketing tool now, which I think is
Sorry,
kind of
I'm
disappointing.
distracted. My connection is not doing well. If anything happens, I'll re-upload or whatever. But yeah,
Hang in there, Chaz.
no. It YouTube is like disconnecting from OBS, unfortunately. But
Well, we only got 1 minute left.
shoot,
Any last thoughts on that one?
no, we have less than a minute. No, I'm good. Honestly, really, none of the other speedrun topics are super crazy. Apparently, Microsoft came out and said that they think PlayStation Slim's going to be out later this year for $399. That's the only other major topic, and it's like, when it comes to that, it's like, what for? Like, what is it? I mean, other than a smaller PlayStation 5, like, it's not
I can
gonna-
see how they.
But they mentioned that already. That's nothing new.
Sony
We already
has
knew that
no.
was going to happen.
Well, Sony hasn't mentioned that it was coming out yet. It did leak from the court documents, though, that most likely that was something that was coming, but Sony never officially said anything. It is. We are in the right time frame. I mean, it feels
Yeah,
weird because this generation has had such a slow start, but we're what 3 years into this generation. That's
that's
about the
true.
time you see a console refresh. Um, I would be surprised if we see a Slim this year, only because people are just now getting their PS5s, right? The past like maybe 6 months have been where people have finally been able to get the console if they wanted it. And we also haven't heard any real official rumblings yet. I feel like you probably would have heard something by now. Like at this last Sony showcase, they would have said, and coming in October, coming in, well, probably December is the Slim. So, I mean, there's still
Yeah.
time. I'd be a little surprised, but Microsoft knows more than me.
Okay, so that is our speedrun topics for this week. So now we are moving into our main topic for this week,